Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kovacs here, and for Erev Shabbat Hukat, Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 9 of Gittin, Mishnah Dalet, fourth Mishnah. Shlosha Gittin Besulin. There are three invalid Gittin. Now, so far, we've seen a lot more than three that are invalid, but these ones are special. The im niseit, because if the wife actually gets remarried, havlad kosher. Any offspring are kosher. Nobody is, God forbid, a mamzer. So we say it's valid bidi evid, after the fact. We don't want her to get married based on this flawed get, but if she did, it's okay. Now, ideally, they would want to fix it and give a new get, but if she'd already been married, they don't give her a second get if she was already married to a new husband. Now, these we're going to see is even according to Rabbi Meir, who said earlier, we were talking about dating on the get, he said anytime they change from what the Chochamim established for a get, everything is puzzle, and the kid is, God forbid, a mamzer, at least a durabanan mamzer, and all of those penalties and consequences take place. So what are these three sort of exceptions where the sages said, yeah, it's puzzle, but as part of that enactment, they said if she had already gone ahead and got remarried, we would allow it to stay without any consequences. Katav b'ktav yado. If the get was written in the husband's own handwriting, and we know it's his handwriting, and he admits it's his handwriting, ein olav edim, but there's no witnesses on the shtar. Now, part of the reason we have witnesses, we learned in the first chapter, was so the husband can't say, hey, that's a forgery. Well, here we know it's not a forgery because he wrote it himself. The second case, yesh olav edim, it has kosher witnesses, ve'ein bo zman, but there's no date. Now, we saw earlier one reason our sages enacted that the get should always have a date was because if a man is married to his niece, perfectly normal marriage, and happened a lot back then, but she, God forbid, committed adultery, he might produce a get with a predated get to get her off the hook. After all, she's still family. The other reason was the payrotes. A husband is entitled to the payrotes, the produce of his wife's real estate and property and vineyards and everything, only as long as they're married. So he might give her a get without a date and keep eating payrotes because there's no date and claim it was given later. And the third get in this category is yesh bo zman. It has the date, ve'ein bo ela eid echad, but there's only one witness. So in the Gemara they talk about it could be that it's actually, we know the ktav sofer, we know the handwriting of the scribe, so we sort of have the scribe joining up with this one other man who signed on it to make it work. Hare elu shlosha gittin psulin. Behold, these three gets are puzzle, im niset avlad kosher. But if she does get remarried, it's kosher. Now, whenever the Mishnah gives you a number or says only these this applies to, it really means only these. And the Gemara explains, yes, that excludes other cases, such as the one where they used the wrong dating system, like they used the date from the wrong kingdom, and similar cases we've seen. Rabbi Elazar, Omer Rabbi Elazar has a shita we first saw on the very first of Mishnah, the very first chapter, even if there's no edim signed on the paper itself, but you gave it in front of two kosher witnesses, kosher. It is a valid get. And also a shtar that's not a get, but a real estate sale or a loan or a financial document, even without edim signing on it, if it's given in front of edim, what we call ede misira karti in the Gemara. So according to Rabbi Elazar, the witnesses who see the handing over of the get or the financial document actually cause the legal effect. So even without signatories, it's still okay in his opinion. And he adds, witnesses only sign a get, tikkun olam. That's for tikkun olam. Basically, if you can't find the Ede Masira, the witnesses to the giving over of the transactional paperwork, you could go find those witnesses who signed it too and validate what really happened. Let's go on to Mishnah. Hey, Shnayim sheshalhu shnei gittin shovin. There were two men named Reuven. They both had a wife named Leah, and they both decided to get divorced. But these Reuvens lived in a different city from the Leahs, or maybe they were on a business trip, or maybe they went to Las Vegas and they were drinking and they did something stupid and said, you know what, let's send gets to our wives, and that's, it's stupid. Okay, but anyway, so they hired one shaliach, one messenger, to deliver both Gittin, and the problem is both Gittin are identical. They have the same date, and the same names, the same city, even at Arvu. And as often happens in these cases, the shliach doesn't know which Reuven goes to which Leah, so he's not sure which one's which. So how do you fix this? No tin shnehem lazo, shnehem lazo. the messenger should give both Gittin to Leah A, then take them back and give both Gittin to Leah B. And that way, we certainly know that the correct Leah has gotten the get from the correct Reuven because she's gotten both Gittin. Levichach, therefore, avad echad mehem. If one of these Gittin is lost on the way, harei sheni batel. You can't use the second get because it's a suffix. You don't know if it's really for this particular Leah or if it's the other one that was for this particular Leah that was lost. Now the Mishnah brings another cost-saving measure in Gittin. Chamisha shktavu klal betoch haget. There were 5 men who wrote under the general get. So 5 men were trying to divorce their 5 wives. They all had different names here, so that's not the issue. But they wrote ish ploni megarish plonit, so ploni plonit, so et cetera, et cetera. They all wrote basically the beginning of the get and then had their names and their wives' names under the, this man is divorcing this Reuven, is divorcing this Leah, et cetera. Eidim milmota, and the Eidim are at the bottom. Kulan kasherin. This is a kosher get. They're all kosher. V'yinaten l'kol achat v'achat. And they give the get to each of these 5 wives. Now the Mishnah compares this to a similar case, hayakatav tofis l'kol achat v'achat. But if there's a separate paragraph, a separate, sentence of allowing the wife for each particular man, they didn't write it all sort of in one bundle, Reuven to Leah and Yaakov to Rachel, etc. They each had their own paragraph in the gets, but Eidim Mamata, and the Eidim are on the bottom of all these paragraphs. Etcha Eidim Nikru Imo kosher. Only the very bottom one that you would read with the Eidim is kosher. Maybe the Eidim only meant to sign on that particular get and not have their signature apply to all 5. Yashar kochachem, Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.